Hello everyone, I'm Mandy Lockley and welcome to On Purpose Astrology. Today I want to talk to you about a minor aspect that has been going on in the sky since the middle of July and will be with us until the middle of November. You might have missed it. I certainly missed it until I actually looked for it. So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about the South Node in Libra, Quincunx, Neptune in Pisces. As I say, it's been going for a couple of months already and it's got a couple more months or so to go. First of all, let's just quickly talk about what an inconjunct or quincunx aspect. It's a quincunx or an inconjunct. It has two names. If you see either of those names, quincunx or inconjunct, it's the same thing. Quincunxes are between planets that are 150 degrees apart, i.e. 5 zodiac signs apart. And they're between signs that don't share a mode or an element. I'll discuss exactly what that means in a second. But here I thought I'd show you the quincunx symbol. You can see it looks a bit like a trestle tabletop with the two legs. So if you see that on a chart, you'll know you've got a quincunx. If you see an upside down trestle table, ignore that. It's not a quincunx. It's a different aspect, an even more minor aspect. So what do quincunxes mean astrologically? Well, they might lack the force of squares and oppositions, but they do feel awkward and annoying. They tend to bring low-level stress. They're where you kind of tend to sweat the small stuff, where it's a bit like sometimes having a stone in your shoe. They can be draining in the long run if they're not resolved, if they don't go away. You know, with this one in the sky, it's temporary, so it will go away eventually. We can do some work. We can do the work that it invites us to do, and I'll talk about what that work might be very soon. But overall, they require modifications, and tolerance to sort of get through them. They tend to come up in relationships. So if you've got a quincunx in your birth chart, you might see the themes of that quincunx reflected in your relationship, or you might see quincunxes playing out that are formed in the synastry between your chart and the other person's chart. As I say, they don't share an element. The elements fire, air, earth, and water. They're the filter through which we express ourselves. So when when you have an aspect where the two planets don't share an element, it's like don't quite know where the other side is coming from. They don't share a mode either. The cardinal, mutable, fixed modes are modus operandi. So they don't share the same sort of method of maybe solving problems and getting through life. As I said, they're 150 degrees apart and 5 signs. So how do we go about interpreting a quincunx? So the best way to do it, because they're in signs that don't really have much in common, we interpret them first through the signs. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what a Libra Pisces quincunx is. This is relevant if you have a Libra Pisces quincunx in your birth chart, in your synastry, in a relationship, or transiting in the sky like we have one today. It's obviously going to be more relevant if it's in your actual birth chart. So what is Libra and Pisces all about? Well, what they do have in common is they're both ruled by the planet Venus. So that takes us directly to the idea of a relationship. But Libra's an air sign. It's about thinking, and water's a water sign is all about feeling and emotion. So there's something about not being able to quite find the balance between the intellectual and the emotional, whether that's in a relationship or in yourself. It can be a romantic. Libra and Pisces can be a romantic and idealistic combination. And particularly with the South Node in Libra and Pisces, Neptune in this one in the sky, it can be very romantic. But the problem is that Libra's sociability and its strong leading towards partnership is kind of different to the kind of merging with someone, the emotional merging that's important for Pisces. The air sign, unless it's mitigated by other chart factors, if it's in your chart, this particular type of quincunx, doesn't provide the emotional container that Pisces needs for love to for love to flow freely. Pisces is looking for emotional wholeness, while Libra is looking for a less emotional connection. Nevertheless, obviously, as we know, relationship is very important for Libra, but it's expressed very differently. So what they both have in common, Pisces and Libra, is again in different ways, they can both be a little bit manipulative. when they're unhappy and not getting what they want out of a relationship, Libra can turn on the charm offensive and even manipulate Pisces into thinking they're doing what Pisces wants, when really it's what Libra wants. And Pisces' natural self-sacrificing nature might let this go, but it wears them down in the long run. As I said, quincunxes can be draining, they can wear you down. Pisces um, is more inclined towards emotional manipulation, perhaps trying to guilt Libra into getting what they want. But to make it work, to make the Libra and Pisces quincunx work, Libra needs to recognize Pisces' sensitivity, and Pisces needs to learn to be more understanding of Libra's love language, even if some of it they can't translate. There are signs, however, that at best, both can, they can both see both sides of a situation. As a cardinal sign, that's one of the modes I just talked about. Libra can take most of the power in the relationship, however. Pisces on the surface might not mind, but as I said, this dynamic can sometimes wear both parties down over time. Let's very quickly have a look at the chart for this particular, there you go, for this particular quincunx that's in the sky. We can see there the South Node in Libra in house 12, making a quincunx aspect to Neptune in Pisces in house 4. You can ignore the houses. I've set this for London. I've set it for 12 p.m. on the 6th of September for London. So ignore the houses. You might want to put this aspect into your own chart and see what houses it falls into, which area of life. The houses, of course, areas of life. I have taken out all the other aspects. There are lots of other aspects going on in this chart, but just so that you can see that quincunx clearly in this chart, you can see that little trestle table right in the middle of the chart there to show you that that's a quincunx aspect. It is not quite exact. It will be going more exact as it sort of goes forward. It's actually, both signs are actually going backwards. So there you can sort of see what it looks like in your chart, in a chart. So what does it mean particularly? We've talked about the dynamic generally between Pisces and Libra, but South Node in Libra, quincunx, Neptune in Pisces. Now, as I said, it's been running since July, be with us until November. Most quincunxes in the sky, moving quincunxes. Obviously, if you've got a quincunx in your birth chart, you've got it forever, but for your life anyway. Most quincunxes in the sky only last for a couple of days if there's an inner planet involved, such as Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars. But because Neptune is very slow moving and the nodes are relatively slow moving, it's going to be with us for a while, which is why I think it's worth commenting on and worth looking at. So what does the South Node represent first? The South Node represents where we need to let go, but where we might stay in our comfort zone. Okay, it's related to the past, to perhaps karma we need to clear, to past life issues. And particularly our natal chart South Node is about past life issues and karma. But in the sky, it points to maybe some things that we need to do some work on in terms of letting go. So the transiting Libra South Node invites us all to look at our relationships. We've seen that quincunxes do often manifest in relationships. We've seen that this can be a romantic aspect between Libra and Pisces. So because it's a South Node, because it's what we need to let go of, or where our comfort zone is, where we might put up with those irritations, those frustrations, those little nagging things that come with quincunxes, perhaps it is a little bit of a time to think, well, what relationships are stuck in the past? What do we need to let go of? What dynamics do we possibly need to change in our ongoing relationships? Because it's Venus ruled, do we feel valued and appreciated? And are we valuing and appreciating the ongoing relationships, the people in our lives? Goes both ways, of course. Perhaps it's a time to think about where you might need to make adjustments in your relationships to better tolerate the small stuff that might be irritating you. Libra is ruled by Venus. Venus has just gone direct. So this work possibly might be getting easier. So this second half of this South Node Neptune quincunx might be a little bit easier to negotiate as Venus goes forward. Now, because the South Node is always in opposition with the North Node, and the North Node, therefore, at the moment is in Aries. By the way, I've done a whole video about the nodes moving into Aries and Libra. You can always check that out if you want to know a little bit more. But because we've got that opposition, the Libra opposition to Aries here in the nodes, it's also about considering how we relate to ourselves. Our self-esteem has something to do with Libra, with Venus, and Neptune, and Aries is about our sovereignty. Perhaps you can consider where you might have lost yourself in your relationship and where you need to stand in your own sovereignty, for example. The South Node in Libra might also have something to do about your self-value, as I've already said, but about income even. Libra is associated with finances, but more specifically about income, about the money that you draw, that you magnetize to yourself. And there's a relationship between self-value and your income. For example, are you being undervalued at work? Do you feel undervalued or overvalued? Do you feel imposter syndrome because you're being paid too much, or do you feel undervalued because you're being paid too little? Often there's a correlation between the money that you accept for what you do and how much you value yourself. Not always, but often there is that relationship. So that's another thing to consider, perhaps. And again, especially now that Venus has gone direct in Leo, which is about self-expression, right? It's about self-expression. How do you express yourself to put yourself more in your own sovereignty and to claim what you're worth, generally, not just financially? So the quincunx with Neptune in Pisces is inviting us to see through some illusions, the stories we are telling ourselves about what is real and what isn't, potentially in our relationships, but more generally even. It speaks to the ways we deceive ourselves, where we go with the flow to keep the peace. Pisces is a very flowing sign. Neptune is very flowing. It's water, water, water. Whereas Libra wants to keep the peace. What are we hanging on? Where are we hanging on? What are we hanging on to? Where are we hanging on? Because of sentimentality. As I say, it's a very romantic and sentimental combination when Pisces comes together with Libra. Perhaps your intuition is telling you that things aren't what they seem, but you're not quite sure why. And this means it could be a difficult time to make a decision about what direction that you go in. Remember, of course, the South Node does invite us to think about what we need to let go of. It's the purging side of the nodal axis. It's the tail of the dragon. The head of the dragon is the North Node. It's what the dragon consumes and takes in. Whereas when that's all being used up, what is the waste? What don't we need anymore? Again, that's another kind of theme. There's something about sacrifice and letting go. We don't need to sacrifice. That can be a very Piscean thing in a kind of more negative way. But what do we need to let go? If you're drawn to let go of anything, do it with compassion if you can. That's a very Piscean way. Do it with kind words. Do it in a sociable way. Do it in a conciliatory way, a peaceful way, which also brings in the Libran element of things. Of course, there are unconscious processes that work with this aspect. This is a feature of the quincunx in general, unconscious aspects. We might be feeling these frustrations and these irritations. We don't quite know where they come from. And the South Node is unconscious processes. Neptune is unconscious processes as well. So pay attention to your dreams. Keep a dream journal. Make a note or two as soon as you wake up. If before you forget your dream, that might be a way to deal with this quincunx. If you're kind of feeling that frustration in a relationship or in yourself, and you feel like you're holding on to something, feel like there's something you might need to kind of compassionately let go of, or at least let go of the pressure or the tension around it. It's not always just about getting rid of things. It's perhaps about clearing some of the emotions. Very emotional. It's quite an emotional aspect, and it's about what your head is saying and what your heart is saying, that intellectual and that emotional, trying to balance those things. What can you kind of relax into? as well as just let go of course, because you might want to hold on to the job, the relationship, but you might have to let go of some of the dynamics. You might not be aware of what those are. Another way to think about these unconscious processes is to try and be aware of some of your defense mechanisms. When do you feel, what puts you on the defensive in any situation, in social situations, relationship situations? That's kind of a clue, a way of going into your unconscious processes that you might have learned in your childhood or through your life to protect yourself. They've kept you safe. So you say thank them for helping you. There might even be past life stuff, because we are talking about the South Node here. Think about what those are. Again, journaling can really help with that. For those of you on a spiritual path, this can be an opportunity, as I said, to clear some past karma and free yourself from the limitations, those kind of thorns in your side, those kind of stones in your shoe, metaphorically speaking, from past lives that have been holding you back, so that you can better utilize the innate gifts that you have mastered from the past, from past lives. It's not about getting rid of all of the stuff. It's just about getting rid of the crap, right? So that you can shine. The other side of the South Node is the North Node, and it's kind of that while the South Node is more lunar, the North Node is perhaps more solar. So it's about where you can shine once you've let go of some of the crap or the defense mechanisms, or you've come to realize some of the unconscious processes at work and you kind of working on them. Just taking the intention to work on these things is a fantastic first step that really launches you into releasing not easy work, and maybe deep work. Maybe it's too much for deep work at the moment for you, especially with the quincunx is not always about this dramatic deep work that you have to do because the opposition, you're confronted with something, you have to act on it. The square is not obstacle that you've got to work through. As I said, that quincunx, it's about those little nagging things. Oh, I'll do, even health issues. Oh, I've been meaning to do something about that for some time. It's kind of annoying me. It's not too bad. I've got this pain in my leg. I don't know what it is. It's fine. It comes and it goes, blah, blah, blah. Gets on my nerves a little bit. Perhaps it's time to sort of think about that. Not suggesting at all that quincunxes are going to be, quincunx is talking about serious health issues, but sometimes we can just feel that relief when we get something that we haven't got round to, a nagging thing, a behavior, as I say, a little health issue, or something in a relationship. Those nagging little things that we kind of put up with, they do drain you in the long run. So yeah, maybe it's time to sort of sort those out and let them go. So let's see, perhaps it's a chance to contemplate your soul family. Again, if you're working on the spiritual level. On the spiritual level, people that come into your life that have an impact on you are part of your soul family. They come to teach you something about yourself and your purpose, and vice versa. Perhaps that work with that particular person, that particular issue, might have felt awkward and a little tense and felt some resistance, but no, it's kind of done and you can move on. You can keep the relationship if you want to, but the work is done. Perhaps that's something else that you might feel you need to let go of. The quincunx, this one particular, speaks to your creativity as well, because we've got Libra and we've got Pisces. So if you've been feeling frustrated creatively, maybe there are adjustments and modifications that can be made, or maybe there are creative differences that others that need to be looked at, worked on, compromises to be made. Compromise is a good word for Libra, and it's a good word for quincunx as well. Sometimes you do have to make compromises. Think, well, I don't really like this very much, but it's not a big deal. I'm not going to try and make it a big deal, but I'm just going to kind of get on with it and accept it and do my best. So as I said, now that the Venus is going direct, that's going to be helpful to this quincunx between the South Node and Neptune. Because, as I said, Venus rules Libra, which is the South Node sign. This moving aspect, as I say, this South Node in Libra, Quincunx, Neptune in Pisces, will have more relevance to you if you have planets or angles in your chart at 24 to 28 degrees of any sign. So you can look at your chart. If you know your chart, you can have a quick look, see if you've got anything at 24 to 28. If you haven't got your chart, you can get a free one at astro.com. And you can kind of look at the transits as well on there. You can put the transits in so you can see what house this quincunx is going to be. It's going to be in two houses, of course, two different houses, of course. See what houses it is, which is about the areas of your life, and what planets it might be aspecting. For example, if it touches your moon, then it's going to be more emotional. It's going to touch more on the emotional side of things and the way you are nurtured or the way you nurture yourself. If it's in the sun, it's about how you shine. It's about your vitality. How are nagging little things affecting your vitality? Because as I said, quincunxes can be draining on your vitality. Mercury about communication, how you communicate, misunderstandings, deceptions, lies, for example. Are you telling yourself lies without realizing it because you want things to be perfect or ideal, and vice versa? You feel other people are doing the same thing. That's Mercury, that's communication. Venus, as I said, Venus, that sort of just underlines the whole aspect of, making it about relationships, about self-worth, about value, self-value, and maybe even about income and also creativity. Mars, perhaps with Mars, you need to take some kind of action. Mars is the planet of desire. It's the planet of action. It's kind of how we defend ourselves. So maybe if your Mars in your birth chart is touching this quincunx in the sky, it might be what I talked about, the defense mechanisms coming up. It might be that you have less tolerance for the sort of irritabilities around you that might come up with this quincunx, for example. So there's just a few things. Jupiter, for example, can blow things out of proportion. It can also bring opportunities as well. It's a very positive sign. It can bring a bit, a lucky break in your creativity if you can kind of get past the annoyances, a lucky break in your relationship. It might not be as perfect as you wanted it to be, or the creative project might not be as perfect, but actually there's opportunity and potential in there. Saturn, of course, as we know, brings tests and lessons and obstacles and sort of delays. So that's another thing to bear in mind, which can also cause frustration and irritation in a different kind of way. And there might be more of a kind of stoical way of dealing with it. With Saturn, is always the best way is to deal with it stoically, to accept it and to do the work. So I hope that has helped. I hope it's been of interest to you. As I said, it's an aspect that really kind of passed me by until I started looking into quincunxes recently. As I say, I'm researching quincunxes in relationships for a conference. I've talked about this conference already on other videos, 1st and 3rd of December for the Academy of Astrology UK. I think the early bird is finished now. It's £100 for 3 days of amazing talks by brilliant astrologers, and they've even got me. Anyway, plug over. And I really hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you've learned something. If you've got any comments, put them in the comments box and I will try to reply. I don't reply to anything too personal. I don't do sort of personal chart readings on YouTube. I do take personal clients though. So you can look at my website, onpurposeastrology.com, if you're interested in a private reading with me. And thank you for watching again. Thank you for subscribing. As I say, this channel is only just over a month old, and I'm so pleased that it's helping people, that people are actually watching it and people are subscribing. If you haven't subscribed and you've enjoyed this, please do. Lots of love to you. Thanks as always. Bye bye.